We have three options as a committee before us. Number one, we can decide that no further action is necessary, in which case the Cabinet decision will be implemented. Or number two, the committee may wish to refer comments to the appropriate decision maker to consider. Even if the committee decides not to accept the call-in, this will not prevent the decision from being implemented. Or finally, number three, refer the matter back to the decision maker, clearly detailing concerns which are to be addressed, in which case the decision maker has 10 working days to amend, withdraw or implement the decision and should formally notify the Overview and Scrutiny Committee accordingly. I'm going to go down, starting with Councillor Bigham. I'm going to ask you which of those options, 1, 2 or 3, you support. If you support number 2, it would be useful if you could outline your comment, and particularly if it refers to one of the 3 specific areas that Councillor Ainslie talked about, i.e. the consultation or the financial viability or the heritage point or any combination of the above. And the same if you decide that number 3 is your preferred option, in which case we need to give a detailed decision, so detailed reason. So if you could outline what that is, but bear in mind that we have to be very concise because we've got about 13 minutes left. So Councillor Bigham, if you could indicate which choice and if 2 or 3, the reasons why.
Yeah. I support option 2, and on the basis that I would want to make some comments around the conduct of the survey, concerns were raised around how residents felt about it, how it was conducted, the structural methodology of it, and issues around personal confidentiality, and also to make a more general point, which has been made previously tonight, about the transparency and the financial viability and residents having confidence in the access to that information.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
I would support option 1 on the grounds that the survey methodology fundamentally doesn't feed into the decision. I understand there are some concerns around lack of clarity on the viability, but with a discount rate that conservative, it clears the threshold easily. And in addition, some of Scott Ainslie's objections appeared just to be along the lines that he didn't understand some of the terminology. When it comes to the third objection, fundamentally that's just a matter for planning, and I'm not part of planning.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilcox.
I support option 2. I would also like to, Councillor Bigham's points around the methodology and their clear mistakes, I think, that were made in terms of the on-the-ground work. But more importantly, backing up the Cabinet decision to look at the management of the consultation process and put in place a workable mapped out communication plan. I think we need to feed back that needs to be much more transparent and really be serious about rebuilding the trust. And also, I think that with the architectural heritage, I would ask that some attention was paid to the discussions around the conservation area, because particularly when it comes to planning, those issues will be raised, but I think more work needs to be done before it gets to planning, because otherwise the planning committee will have real difficulty making decisions if there's a total lack of clarity in this area.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer.
Option 3, I think that I would prefer if there was much more robust presentation pertaining to the first 2 areas, the viability and the survey. I think that we have to be much more rigorous and robust about these processes if we're going to make such fundamental changes in terms of regeneration, and I'd like to see that really built into the system before implementing it in this particular decision and future decisions. And I think that option 3 gives us an opportunity to really review and come forward with a better case.
Councillor Hazelden.
Thank you. I was taking Councillor Simpson's point about the lack of direct impact on this decision. I do support option 2. I think Cressingham Gardens has a knock-on effect to the rest of the programme. I think we've heard enough of very constructive comments from both sides of the table tonight, and to avoid the baffled ignorance that Mr. Hollis highlighted, I thought, and said quite succinctly, I would like to see the points you've made on the nature of the communication, the nature of the terminology, and communication ideas, and basically sharing what the council's up to in the core of the survey. So we're actually simply conveying our concerns and asking for the steer. So when you talk about qualitative, make it absolutely clear in everyday terms what you're trying to get. It's a steer on feeling and approach and everything else. And then there are other aspects which quantify, and that's much clearer really. So I do think the committee can ask for consolidation of that, and particularly applying to the programme as a whole. So that's my position.
Councillor Parr.
I support option 2 with, I've got a number of points, Chair. Firstly, on the transparency of the financial analysis, recommendation 7 from Cabinet on page 251, I'd like to know exactly how transparency is going to be improved, and I'd like that to, along with other recommendations, have the answer to that come back to scrutiny. Reviewing consultation, as other people have said, but including looking at the principles behind consultation during regen, and making sure that we're really clear about what principles we're following. Thirdly, there's loads of interesting recommendations which we didn't have time to go through in the Equalities Impact Assessment, especially, which was touched on by 1 or 2 speakers, things like difficulty of getting mortgages for older people, just taking one example, but I think a very important example. And there's some commitments in the documents to resolving that, but I'd like to know exactly how the council is going to make sure that people affected actually can go out and get mortgages, and there's probably other recommendations that should be pulled out from that Equalities Impact Assessment, which I wish Councillor Ainslie had brought up as a grounds for opposing the proposal, actually, but he didn't. I think we should.
Does he represent people?
I think we should look at the heritage review, and I want to know exactly what the process is for incorporating the report from the borough-wide heritage review in the process of making decisions about this project, and I suppose others. That'll do. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nathanson.
Thank you. I support recommendation number 3. I think it's for a few reasons. My first thing, that I fundamentally don't believe the Cabinet should take decisions without taking residents' opinions into account. I think you presented the survey as a nice to have, whereas I think when we've seen other examples of where communities have been lost and residents have been affected, that it should be a nice to have, it should be a must have. I think that they're going to repeat some of the things already said about the transparency of the financial and the viability gatepost, signpost, whatever you want to call it. I think it was, 1,000 pages of something quite complex. It's not something that is appropriate to give to residents. And also, I think we should wait for the report out on the conservation area and for the borough-wide heritage review before we can make a decision about any sort of demolition.
Thanks very much. For what it's worth, I agree with the majority that option number 2 is the best option, which, by my maths, 1, 2, 3, that's 5 for option 2, 1 for option 1, and 2 for option 3. I agree with all of my colleagues' points about the areas that we need more clarity and improvement on, specifically and principally around the consultation process, not just for Cressingham, but obviously this is part of a longer programme, and we definitely don't want a repeat of the kind of experiences that we've heard from residents tonight and in other formats. I think we all need to learn lessons from that process and improve them, And I think Councillor Parr made some particularly good points around the equality implications that we need to tease out further. Obviously, we don't have time to do that now, but I think when we've got more time, we need to have find a format in which to discuss this further in order to improve the process. Because clearly, it's not been a fantastic experience for a lot of residents that we heard from this evening. And as Councillor Dyer intimated about Martfield North, this isn't a unique, unfortunate experience for residents. We do definitely want to learn lessons and make sure that the kind of mistakes that we made don't happen again. And I endorse the points around more transparency, as full as possible around the financial viability, or whatever we're going to call that particular process, and the language and the communications clearly not clear enough. And again, we need to definitely learn lessons around that and make the processes as clear as possible. And on the heritage point, we need to get some clarity around the heritage review, how that fits into this process, the stuff around the conservation area work. Personally, I don't know much about planning, but as Councillor Wilcox is on the planning committee and says that that would be useful before it goes to the planning committee, I think that we should listen to that. But I'd like to thank everybody who's attended. I know that's not necessarily the outcome that many of you would have wanted, but I do appreciate your time and your hard work reading 1,000 pages of documents, whatever it is. We have listened very carefully to what you've had to say, given as much time as possible, and I urge the Cabinet member, and we shall be checking that these things are taken into account and listened to, and that we find a mechanism for feeding back as well to the residents, particularly ones we've heard from tonight, but more widely about the action we will take to ensure that we have better processes for involving people in these kinds of life-changing decisions, as we've heard, albeit ones that do create more social housing for people that we haven't heard from this evening, which include those who are homeless or overcrowded. So thanks very much for everyone's time. Good night.